Prologue, June 23rd, 2023. Setting up a review talking about the film Asteroid City, directed by Wes Anderson. So, Asteroid City, the new film by Wes Anderson, acclaimed filmmaker who has done several great films that I love, and I've been a fan of Wes Anderson for many years now. He's got a very distinct, unique style in his filmmaking, and if you've ever seen a Wes Anderson film, you can tell right off the bat that it was done by him. And if you've seen, footage in passing, you'll probably be able to identify what's a Wes Anderson film just by his symmetrical filmmaking, blocking everything and having everything, centered, framed, colorful, and kind of that weird flat 2D animation. He's got his own unique style to everything, and I just think it's great. So I was looking very forward to this film, Asteroid City. What I will say, what I didn't expect is that the trailer is slightly misleading, which is fine for a Wes Anderson film, because you want some quirks, you want some weirdness around your Wes Anderson film, and that's what he does. He brings it here, and he doesn't show you everything in the trailers, which I do appreciate. But at the same time, I do feel like I got set up by a level of expectation, which is on my own fault. That's my own fault, and it was, my expectations just weren't met. That's a me thing. I came in with not very high expectation, but I was very excited for this film, and I kind of left not feeling that way. So let me explain. The premise here essentially is, in the town of Asteroid City, there is a young space cadets conference happening, and that's where all these families kind of are gathering. And one family who, the Steenbecks, Jason Schwartzman is the patriarch of that family. He has a son, Woodrow, who is one of these space cadets who's going to be a part of the ceremony, and there they meet several other colorful characters in a Wes Anderson type world. You have Scarlett Johansson, who plays Midge Campbell, who's an actress, and her daughter, played by Grace Edwards, is Dinah Campbell, and she's another one of the space cadets. And they kind of have this ceremony, and that's when this little town gets visited by an alien, and that's where everything kind of jumps off the rails, and the city becomes quarantined, and it's about all these people in this town, or is it really about all the people in this town? Because where you don't see in the trailers, you kind of get a hint of it in one of the posters, which I didn't really see before, but there is a story outside of this story. It's very interesting because they set this film up, and it's not really a spoiler. You know how if you've seen a Wes Anderson film, he sets his films up in very stage play-like ways, or like a storybook type of way, where he'll give you chapter titles. He'll give you Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, and so on and so forth, scenes 1 through 4. And he does that here. And the way this is broken up is there is another, I won't say another narrative, but there is another through line, which is the outside world looking into the stuff from the trailer. So you got like a narrator talking about the making of this play, which you see the actors portrayed by the characters in the film, but you see their actor version, which is all in black and white. And so it took me a while. It kind of took me out of it a little bit, because I was a little confused. Like, wait, so, okay, we're focusing on the actors outside of this story, but we're also jumping back into the story, and we have to focus on that. So my attention was like all over the place, which is fine. Wes Anderson throwing us a lot of curveballs with this one. And I'm sure some people will probably grasp this and, understood what was going on right away. For me, it took a little while to adjust to what this film was doing, and it really threw me for a loop. But, there's so much going on inside the story and then outside the story, and I'm sure there's way much more meaning and way much more context to everything. I might need a second viewing of this to fully grasp everything, but what I do know is Wes Anderson nails the style, per usual. I love the aesthetic of this film, both inside their colorful story and outside in the black and white, true, what brought this story to life world. So I thought that was interesting. Like I said, might not have grabbed me the way I think it was intended, but Wes Anderson doesn't do a bad job. And then he gets a great cast put together. Like I already mentioned, Jason Schwartzman and Scarlett Johansson is the two main leads of this, and they crush it. I absolutely love both of their characters in this film, and I thought everything they did was incredible. Jason Schwartzman especially, it's really cool to finally kind of see him take the full reins again at the front of a Wes Anderson film. Usually he plays a great bit character, but in this one it was great seeing him come in and kind of be the lead of this. And Scarlett Johansson, I always love Scarlett Johansson. She can't do any wrong for me. But then like, you get other people who show up, obviously. Wes Anderson's cast list is so long, and at one point they had the cast list scrolling along the side of the screen, kind of like in the trailer, and they tell you who they're playing, and there's a couple of spoilers in there, and I was like, oh man, I wish I wouldn't have known that so-and-so was playing this character. That would have been a great surprise in the film. So I feel like that was a big misstep from the beginning, showing who everybody in the cast was playing. Other than that little nitpick, I guess, because that didn't really ruin the film. It did bum me out a little bit. Even though a lot of them don't get as much screen time as you would want. They come in, they play these characters, and they're all quirky, and they're all got their own little bits and scenes that work, and then they're gone. So it's hard to really grade a film on Steve Carell's performance, which I think Steve Carell was great in this, but it's a little bit part. So it's cool that they get really big and good actors and actresses to play these little bit parts that kind of flesh out this weird, quirky world. But it does bum me out that I can't be like, Steve Carell is an absolute thespian in this. He does a good job. And I think the cast as a whole, all the players that don't get to do as much as the main cast are great. I have no problem with anything in the background of this film. It is weird because if you're not a Wes Anderson fan, this is definitely not for you. I know my dad wanted to see this, and after I saw it, I said, there's no way you're going to enjoy this. It is just way too quirky for you. Because I thought this might be the more straightforward Wes Anderson film, talking about aliens and having a town quarantine, but it's about so much more than that, and then it explores kind of this meta commentary outside with the writer of the play, the director of the play, and all the actors that are playing the characters in this play, and just all this weird stuff around it. So definitely a lot of layers to it. And like I said, I was a little lost and confused at points, not gonna lie, but I still enjoyed it. It's still a good Wes Anderson film, but definitely not gonna be one of his best. I was a little let down, and I don't know where I would rank it just yet. Might have to take a couple of days to think that out, but I would still say if you are a Wes Anderson fan and you are curious about it, go check it out and make up your own mind. I do think it's a little step above The French Dispatch, but it's definitely not quite near some of my other favorite Wes Anderson films. And with that said, I'm going to give this a solid B. I still think there's a lot here to enjoy. The performances and the set design and the music and all that stuff work really well. It's just, for me, and like I said, upon subsequent viewings, it might change because I've seen Wes Anderson films, not been crazy about them, but then the more I see them, the more I pick up on stuff, the more, the higher the grade I would eventually give it. So right now, being a B, it is, that's what it's going to be. So yeah, it was Wes Anderson doing Wes Anderson filmmaking and making a Wes Anderson film very, very much. And then kind of dialing it up a couple degrees. So I know that's probably not a very great way to describe it, but it's very hard for me to not spoil this because, it is such a weird, quirky film, and it's hard to really dive into anything without really spoiling it, because I think that there's a lot of genuine stuff here that I think people should go in without knowing and experience for themselves and see if maybe I'm not by myself, that they, were a little taken aback by maybe the story structure of this film. But hey, it's going to hit everybody different, but I'm sure there'll be more people who loved it more than me. Anyway, if you're one of those people, leave your comments down below. If you could also please hit that like button, subscribe button, hit the little bell notification to be notified whenever I drop new videos. It'd be greatly appreciated. And until the next review, guys, I'll be seeing you.